Okay, we're going to try example 4 from the Unit 7 review problems. So a fast food restaurant has just installed a new automatic ketchup dispenser for use in preparing its burgers. The amount of ketchup dispensed by the machine follows a normal distribution with a mean of 1.05 ounces and a standard deviation of 0.08 ounces. And it says to use the empirical rule. So that's the 68, 95, 99.7 rule. So we'll go over that, and I drew there's a normal distribution over here on the side, and we have the mean in the middle. And then these other marks are 1, 2, and 3 standard deviations from the mean, and those numbers just come from adding the standard deviation. So if you take 1.05 plus 1 standard deviation, so you add 0.08, and then you get 1.13, and you add another standard deviation, you add another 0.08, you get 1.21, and so on. So anytime it says the empirical rule, I think it's really useful to just draw this picture. And then what percent of the time does the machine dispense less than 1.21 ounces? So here's 1.21. I'm just going to mark that off. And we're trying to find everything. It says less than, so this whole area, less than. If I look at where 1.21 is, it's 2 standard deviations above the mean. If I go 2 standard deviations below the mean and 2 standard deviations above the mean, that's 95%. But we don't just want within there, we also want to include this tail. And each of these tails outside of the 95% are 2.5%. So that comes from the whole thing has to add up to 100%. So if the middle is 95%, that leaves 5% left over. So then if you divide 5% by 2, you get 2.5%. So what we want to do is just add up 2.5% plus 95% and then get 97.5%. Okay, on the next one we want what percent of the time does the machine dispense between 0.89 and 1.13 ounces. So I'm just going to erase what I have on here so I can mark things for the next problem. So 0.89, that's here, and 1.13, I want between those two. If I just look at 0.89, it's 2 standard deviations below the mean. Draw a line there for the mean. Just like the last problem, if I was 2 standard deviations below to 2 standard deviations above, so from here to here, that's 95%, but I just want half of that. If for just this part, let's say I just want that part. I just want half of 95%. So if I do 95 divided by 2, we get 47.5%. So that's that blue shaded area. Then I also want this area from 1.05 from the mean to 1.13. So that is half of 68%, because from here to here, from 1 standard deviation below and above the mean is 68%. So if I do half of 68, that's 34%. So now I'm just going to fill in these percents because this looks a little messy now. Okay, so from here to the mean is 47.5 because that's half of 95%. And then from the mean to 1.13 to 1 standard deviation above the mean is 34%. And we want to add those together. So 47.5 plus 34%, 81.5%. And then what percent of the time does the machine dispense more than 1.29 ounces of ketchup? Let me erase this so we can mark on here. And then I'm going to go to 1.29, that is way up here, which is 3 standard deviations above the mean. So if I was 3 standard deviations below to 3 standard deviations above the mean, that's 99.7% because of the empirical rule. But it says above, it says more than, so I want this way, just that little tail above. So if I take 99.7 and I subtract that from 100%, I get 0.3%. And then if I divide that by 2, so I could get these two tails, it's 0.15% in each tail. So that means just above, just this tail above 1.29 is 0.15%.